She was still wearing my last name, but the ring I found in her drawer wasn't mine. It was a Thursday evening. She handed me a glass, and I saw it. Her left hand was bare. No wedding ring. She'd worn that ring every single day for nearly 9 years. Through illness, travel, everything. The ring wasn't just jewelry. It was a promise. And now it was gone. I didn't say anything right away. Just watched her move around the kitchen like nothing was different. No guilt. No tension. That made it worse. Later, when she sat on the couch and unlocked her phone, I asked, "Hey, where's your ring?" She didn't look up. Took it off earlier. My hand felt swollen. Probably allergies. I nodded. Allergies? You've never taken it off before. She smiled at her phone, not at me. Well, there's a first time for everything. That was it. She turned on the TV and scrolled through Netflix like we were fine. But I wasn't. At midnight, when she was asleep, I went into her office. I didn't plan to. My body just moved. The ring was there, but not hers. A different one. Thicker. Gold. No engraving. Sitting in a black box under a folder of invoices. Like it had been hidden, just not from someone who was finally paying attention. Under the box, a sticky note. For words in unfamiliar handwriting. For the next chapter, I stood there staring, heart frozen. I didn't touch anything else. Just closed the drawer. Slowly. Quietly. Like sealing a coffin. The next morning, she kissed me on the cheek. Told me not to forget the dry cleaning. Wore a new perfume. Drove off like nothing had changed. But everything had. That ring wasn't just a clue. It was the beginning of the end. And I was finally wide awake. I spent the rest of that day pretending I hadn't seen it. Pretending I wasn't picturing her sliding that ring onto someone else's finger. Someone who wasn't me. It sounds dramatic, but when something snaps in your reality, you don't fall apart all at once. You wait. You study it. You try to control the damage. She texted me later that day like nothing was wrong. Send a photo of a new blouse. Think this works for the conference next week? I stared at the screen. I didn't answer. I didn't have anything to say to the version of her that could still pretend. Instead, I started watching. Really watching. She came home later than usual that night. Smelled like a different cologne. Her hair curled slightly at the ends. Not the usual quick tie-up bun. She didn't kiss me. Just said, "Hey," and asked if I'd eaten. I said yes. Didn't ask where she'd been. We sat on the couch. I watched the TV. She watched her phone. It was like sharing a room with a stranger who used to be your best friend. After she went to bed, I checked the trash bin on her computer. Old PDFs. Nothing unusual. Then I saw a deleted screenshot cropped message thread. Just a name, Derek. Her side of the conversation gone. His message still visible. Miss you already. I stared at it, not breathing. Not because I was shocked. Because I wasn't. Derek. I didn't know a Derek. I opened her work contacts in a browser. Searched her agency's PR page. Found him. Senior brand strategist. I stared at his photo. He looked like a guy from a gym ad. Confident, polished, slightly too perfect. I hated him on sight. Not because of what he'd done. Because of how familiar he looked. Like the kind of guy who always gets away with it. That night, I made a decision. I wasn't going to ask her anything. Not yet. I was going to wait. Collect. Confirm. Because the second I opened my mouth, everything would change. And I wasn't ready to lose my world until I knew exactly what I was letting go of. So I played along. Said good morning. Laughed at her stories. Kissed her forehead. And every night, I checked her computer. Her bag. Her scent. It didn't feel like spying. It felt like survival. The more I watched, the more I noticed. Little things. She started turning her phone screen away when I walked into the room. Used to be nothing, just emails, texts from her sister, stupid memes. No? Silence. Tap, lock, flip. She started working later, but always came home dressed better than she'd left. I started marking the days. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Every second day, she came home glowing. Not tired. Not drained. Glowing. I kept track. Kept calm. And then I found the receipt. It was folded in the back pocket of her jeans, tossed into the laundry basket. 2 cocktails. Shared appetizer. Date night food. From a rooftop bar she told me she hated. The date was from the previous Friday. That was the night she said she had a late pitch rehearsal with the client team. I stared at the receipt like it could still whisper the whole truth. The next morning, I put it back in her pocket. Because I wanted her to know I knew. But not say it. Not yet. She never said a word about it. And that told me everything. We were already playing chess. But only one of us knew it. She didn't notice the receipt was back in her jeans. Or if she did, she didn't say a word. That silence was louder than any scream. She made French toast that morning. I watched her pour syrup over both plates. The same way she always did. Same knife, same rhythm. As if she hadn't just returned from someone else's arms. I ate every bite. Later that day, she texted me about weekend plans. Did I want to go to the farmer's market? Maybe take a drive? Her fingers must have danced across the screen. Mine hovered. I didn't respond. I was already making plans of my own, plans she'd never be part of again. That night, I searched for more. I waited until she was in the shower. Her phone sat on the sink, locked, of course. But her laptop wasn't. She'd left it open, like she was testing me, or like she just didn't care anymore. The messages weren't in her inbox, but the drafts told a different story. I clicked through them, one by one. Most were empty, but one was full. A message she'd written and never sent. Addressed to Derek. I can't keep doing this. He's starting to notice. One line. That's all it took. Proof. Not hearsay. Not suspicion. Confession. I stared at it for a long time. I copied it. Emailed it to myself. Then closed everything and wiped the keyboard. She came out of the shower smiling, towel in her hair. Asked if I wanted to watch something. I said sure. She nestled into the couch next to me like everything was fine. Her head on my shoulder. The scent of borrowed shampoo. I watched the screen. I didn't see a thing. The next week, I watched every move like a man building a case in his mind. She was too polished, too perfect, the way she dressed for work, like she was dressing for someone who saw her through a different lens. She started humming again. Something slow. Something that sounded like a secret with a beat. We stopped making eye contact. Not because we were angry, but because she knew if she looked too long, I might ask something she wasn't ready to answer. And I knew if I looked too long, I'd forget what I was trying to do. I started journaling quietly. Just fragments. What she wore. What time she got home. Whether she locked her phone before setting it down. I made a spreadsheet. Not for revenge. For clarity. For control. I'd wake up and check her location history. I'd catch inconsistencies, Starbucks when she claimed the office. Delayed replies when she said she was in meetings. Once, a charge at a boutique hotel bar at 5:42 p.m., a place we'd never been together. But I knew it. I'd taken a client there 2 years ago. She had hated the smell of the lobby. I began to feel like a detective trapped inside his own marriage. And the more I uncovered, the more hollow I became. The betrayal wasn't in the act. It was in the precision. She wasn't sloppy. She was strategic. Selective. She was cheating on me the way a con artist folds a lie inside a compliment. One night she said, "I miss us." Just that. In the dark. After we'd turned off the lights. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't miss us. Because the version she missed never existed. Not for her. The next morning, she made pancakes. Added blueberries like she used to. Said something about how she needed new running shoes. She wasn't a runner. Not since college. But I played along. That night, I followed her. She said she was meeting a client at the new cocktail place downtown. I waited 20 minutes. Then I drove. Parked across the street. She was there. So was he. Derek. I watched from the car. She leaned in when he spoke. Laughed at something. Touched his wrist. They ordered drinks. Shared a plate. Her hand stayed on the table the entire time, palm up like a silent invitation. He took it. That was the moment everything inside me went still. Not rage. Not heartbreak. Just the clean, surgical cut of confirmation. I left before they did. Sat in the parking lot of a grocery store 2 miles away. Listened to the radio play old songs. I didn't cry. I didn't punch the steering wheel. I just breathed. Because now I knew. And when someone shows you who they are, really shows you, you don't argue. You plan. That night, I went home and copied every file she'd left open on her laptop to a flash drive. Messages. Screenshots. Calendar invites. Even photos. One of them was of her and Derek. Taken from above, maybe a selfie from his phone. Her head on his chest. Her eyes closed. That smile I hadn't seen in months. That was the photo I stared at for a long, long time. I slept on the couch. I didn't pretend anymore. The next morning, I called in sick. Told my boss I needed a few days. I printed the messages. 3 of them. I placed them in a folder, closed it, and put it in my work bag. Not because I was going to confront her yet. Because I needed to know I wasn't crazy. I had spent too long doubting myself. Now I had proof. The only thing left was how to use it. I had everything I needed. The photos. The messages. The timelines. The problem wasn't the lack of truth. It was figuring out what to do with it. You don't burn down a house just because you find termites, but you can't live there anymore either. That morning, I sat in my car outside work for 20 minutes, folder in my lap. Not thinking, just breathing. I imagined walking into the office, setting the folder on her desk, and walking away without a word. But what would that solve? I wanted more than a confrontation. I wanted clarity. I wanted to understand how we got here. So I started researching him. Derek. It didn't take long. LinkedIn, Instagram, public business filings. He was exactly who I expected. A sharp-suited strategist, 5 years older than me, divorced once, no kids, polished captions with just the right balance of ambition and humility. His photos were curated, like he lived life with a brand in mind. But buried in the likes and tags, I found her. Vanessa. They weren't following each other. Smart. But they had mutuals. Comments. Inside jokes that looked harmless until you read between the lines. And then I found her. Rachel. Derek's wife. Or at least, she used to be. Her profile was locked down, but one post stood out. A photo of a shattered wine glass and the words, "Some things don't survive being dropped more than once." The comments were full of vague support. One in particular caught my attention. "You deserve better," or I clicked the name. Another locked profile. But the username was familiar. She'd liked one of Vanessa's photos last year. I stared at the screen. My pulse picked up. I wasn't the only one in this story. And maybe I wasn't the only one trying to survive it. I made a throwaway account. Sent a message. "Hi, Rachel. You don't know me, but I think our spouses do." I didn't expect a reply. I just needed to say it. An hour later, she responded. "I was waiting for this." We agreed to meet the next day. A small coffee shop halfway between her place and mine. She wore sunglasses and a scarf, like she didn't want to be seen, even though no one in that room would have known our names. She sat across from me, quiet, unreadable. Then she opened her purse, pulled out a phone, and set it face up on the table. "Before we talk, you should see this." She played a video. A clip from a hotel security camera. Derek and Vanessa in the lobby. Kissing. Laughing. Her hand on his chest. His mouth on her neck. Not passion, familiarity. Habit. I didn't flinch. Rachel turned the screen off. "I'm not trying to hurt you. I just thought, if we're going to do this, we should be honest." "Thank you," I said. It was all I could manage. She nodded. "I've known for a few weeks." Didn't want to believe it. Then I found a reservation. 2 names. A suite. That's when I put the camera in my car. I blinked. "In your car?" "Yeah. GPS too. He took my car to meet her once. Said his was getting detailed. That's how I got the video." I couldn't help it. I smiled. "Just a little." "Been tracking them?" I asked. "Off and on," she said. I thought about confronting her. Screaming in public. Making a scene. But what's the point? I nodded. "Yeah." We sat in silence. Our coffees went cold. She looked at me then. "So what do we do?" I shrugged. "I'm not sure. I guess." I wanted to know if I was crazy. If I imagined it. "You didn't," she said. And neither did I. We traded stories. Little things. Phone habits. Changes in schedule. Emotional distance. The way they both started dressing better, smiling less, texting more. It was like building a puzzle from 2 sides of the same betrayal. Before we left, she handed me a flash drive. "What's this?" I asked. "Screenshots. Conversations. Audio from his Bluetooth mic. Use it or don't. But I figured, you should have it." I took it. Slipped it into my coat. "Thank you," I said. Rachel gave a tired smile. "Don't thank me. We're in the same storm. Just different boats." As she walked away, I realized I didn't feel lighter. Not yet. But I didn't feel alone either. That night, Vanessa came home late. Said the meeting ran long. Her coat smelled like clove and vanilla. Her heels clicked across the floor with confidence. I watched her from the hallway. She smiled. "Sorry. Crazy day." I smiled back. "No worries." I was done guessing. Now I was preparing. We met again 2 nights later. Different place. Quieter. A small pub with wood-paneled walls and a single bartender who didn't ask questions. We sat in the far corner where no one would hear us unless they tried. Rachel brought a manila envelope this time. "I printed everything," she said. "Just in case." I nodded, sliding my flash drive across the table. "That's everything I have so far." We didn't toast. We didn't order food. We were 2 people who had been lit on fire, trying to map the source of the spark. Inside the envelope, timelines, message excerpts, screenshots from both ends. Derek's voice on her car mic, saying things like, "You make me forget what's real," and "I wish we didn't have to sneak around." Rachel had annotated everything. Dates, cross-references, receipts. We were no longer suspects. We were building a case. "This is a dossier," I said quietly. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "It's a reckoning." We decided on a day, a time, a place, neutral territory. We'd invite them both. Say we wanted to talk about work. Maybe. They wouldn't suspect it, not at first. That was key. I offered to host. Our house. Living room. 2 chairs, 2 guests. No yelling. No drama. Just the truth. Rachel agreed. They won't see it coming. For the next 3 days, I lived like a man rehearsing a monologue. I practiced what I'd say. When to pause. When to breathe. How not to shout. I looked at the photos over and over, not because I didn't believe them, but because I didn't want to forget what this was. It wasn't revenge. It was release. Vanessa didn't notice my distance. If she did, she didn't care. She moved through the house like a tenant passing time until a lease ended. The version of her I loved had become a ghost I only saw in memories. The night before the meeting, I wrote a letter. Not for her. For me. It said, "I loved you when it was hard. I loved you when I shouldn't have. But I will not love you through this." I folded it, put it in my desk. A line in the sand. Saturday came. I cleaned the house with a surgeon's precision. Set out 4 glasses. A pitcher of water. I wanted everything to look like calm. Because inside, I was fire. Rachel arrived first. She wore dark jeans, a black sweater, no makeup. Just eyes that had already cried their last tear. We waited. Vanessa showed up next. She looked confused. "What's going on?" I gestured to the chair. "Just sit. It'll make sense." A minute later, Derek walked in. Saw Rachel. Froze. "Sit," she said. Her voice didn't shake. They sat. We stood. I placed the envelope on the table. Rachel plugged in a speaker. Hit play. Derek's voice filled the room. "You're the only thing that feels right." Then Vanessa's, "I wish I could stay forever." Silence. Vanessa's face drained. Derek leaned forward. "What is this?" "It's what you gave us," I said. "We just organized it." Rachel opened the envelope. Spread the evidence out like a dealer at a poker game. "You both lied." Repeatedly. Systematically. Vanessa spoke first. "Mark, No," I said. "You don't get to talk first." She blinked. It was the first time I'd ever seen her truly speechless. I turned to Derek. "You knew she was married." He didn't answer. Cowards rarely do. Rachel looked at him. "You made vows. I took you back after the last time. You swore it was different." He looked down. She didn't cry. She just watched him shrink. Vanessa stood up. "This isn't fair." "No," I said. "Fair would have been honesty. This is what you chose." She shook her head. "You blindsided me." I nodded. "Now you know how it feels." She walked toward the door. "Wait," I said. "Before you go." I handed her the letter. "Read it when you're alone." "Not now." She took it. Didn't look at me. Walked out without another word. Derek followed, muttering something to Rachel. She didn't respond. The door shut. Silence. Rachel looked at me. "We did it." "Yeah," I said. "We did." She left a few minutes later. I sat alone in the quiet. Not broken. Not angry. Just free. The house felt too clean the next day. Everything was in place, but nothing felt settled. There's a strange silence that follows the truth, one that doesn't scream, doesn't whisper, just lingers. Vanessa hadn't come home. I hadn't expected her to. She didn't text. I didn't call. The absence felt earned. Around noon, I heard her car pull into the driveway. I watched through the blinds as she sat in the driver's seat for a full minute before opening the door. Her steps were slower than usual. Not heavy. Careful. She rang the bell. I didn't answer right away. Made her wait. When I opened the door, she looked smaller than I remembered. No makeup. No perfume. Just jeans and a hoodie I hadn't seen in years. One she used to wear when we were still new. "Can I come in?" she asked. I stepped aside. She walked in like she was trying not to touch anything, as if the walls might remember her too well. "I read the letter," she said, standing near the table. Every word. I said nothing. She reached into her purse and pulled out her wedding ring, placed it on the table like an offering. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she said, "but I owe you something better than silence." I sat down. She stayed standing. "I never planned to hurt you," she began. At first, it was just attention. Something new. Someone who looked at me like I was still becoming. not someone already settled. I nodded slowly, and then it became more. Yes, she said. I let it. And I lied. Again and again. Because once you lie once, it's easier to keep lying. Until you forget how to stop. Did you love him? She hesitated. No. I loved how he made me feel. But not him. That didn't make it better. It made it worse. You know what the hardest part was? I asked. It wasn't the betrayal. It was watching you come home like everything was fine. Watching you pretend I didn't matter. Tears welled up in her eyes. You did matter. You still do. Not enough, I said. She didn't argue. I ruined everything, she whispered. I leaned back. No. You revealed everything. She wiped her face. What happens now? I don't know, I said. But we're not going back. She nodded. I figured. There was a long silence. I should go, she said finally. I didn't stop her. She picked up the ring again, held it for a moment, then placed it back down. Keep it, she said. Maybe it'll remind you that you survived. I didn't look at her as she left. Just listened to the door close. Soft. Final. Later, I packed a bag. Just a small one. Enough for a few days. I didn't need to escape. I just needed space. A place to breathe without history pressing in. I checked into a small inn near the lake. Clean sheets. No memories. The kind of silence that heals, not haunts. I walked by the water. Let the cold wind slap my face. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even sad. I was clear. That night, I opened my laptop, wrote down everything. From the ring to the confrontation. Every lie. Every detail. Not to relive it. To release it. Because some stories aren't meant to be buried. They're meant to be told. Not for her. For me. The first night at the lake was dreamless. I woke up before the sun. The room was cold, the blankets thin, but I didn't mind. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't holding anyone else's lies in my chest. I was just breathing. I made coffee in the little kitchenette and stood by the window while it brewed. The trees outside were still dark silhouettes, the sky just starting to shift, pale blue pushing against the black. It felt like something quiet was opening inside me. I didn't check my phone. I didn't wonder if she texted. I didn't want to know. I wasn't angry. I wasn't grieving. I was something in between. Still. Numb. But not empty. I stayed inside most of that day. Read a book from the inn's dusty shelf. Wrote a few lines in a notebook I found in my bag, half-filled, mostly grocery lists and to-dos. I ripped those pages out and started clean. Day 1. I'm not broken. I'm just bruised in a place no one can see. That became the first sentence I'd written for myself in years. By the third day, I was walking the lake every morning. 10 minutes out. 10 minutes back. Sometimes longer. The path curved along the edge, and if I timed it right, I could stand in the one spot where the sunrise hit the water dead on. No metaphor. Just color. Reflection. I started to sleep again. Not well, but better. The innkeeper's name was Tom. Retired teacher. Lived in the back house with his dog, Bruno. He didn't ask questions. Just nodded when I passed him in the hall and left a fresh towel at my door every morning. That was enough. I wrote more. A little each day. No structure. No plot. Just pieces. Feelings. Fragments. She smiled at me like I was a stranger asking for the time. The hardest part wasn't the cheating. It was realizing I'd made a home in someone else's illusion. I didn't know what I was riding toward. I just knew I couldn't stop. A week passed. Then 2. I called Rachel once. Just to ask how she was. She said, better. Still figuring it out. We didn't talk about them. We didn't need to. We just existed on the same frequency. People who'd survived the same storm. She told me she'd moved out. Got her own place. Bought herself a chair she'd always wanted, the kind Derek said was too much. We laughed. It felt good. I asked Tom if he needed help with anything around the property. He handed me a paintbrush. Said the shed could use a touch-up. I spent the afternoon in silence, painting faded red boards with new strokes. There was something satisfying about it. Something complete. That night, I sat outside under a sky full of stars and wrote a letter. Not to Vanessa. Not to Derek. Just to myself. You stayed longer than you should have. You believed longer than you needed to. But you made it. And you're still here. That matters. I folded it. Didn't sign it. Didn't need to. The next day, I walked into town. Bought a real notebook. A good one. Thick cover. Clean pages. And a pen that felt like it wanted to be held. The first page was blank for hours. Then I wrote, "This is not about them anymore. This is about me." And it was. It happened on a Tuesday. I was just getting back from the lake when I saw her car parked at the edge of the gravel lot. She wasn't standing outside it, wasn't pacing or crying. Just sitting behind the wheel, eyes forward, like someone waiting for permission that wouldn't come. I didn't wave. Didn't stop. I walked past, key in hand, until I heard the door open. Mark. I turned. Her voice was the same, but her face wasn't. There was wear in it now. Less polish. More weight. She stepped out slowly. Held her hands in front of her, like she didn't know what to do with them. Can we talk? I didn't say anything for a few seconds. Then, all right. We sat on the bench outside the main office. The air was cold, the sky washed in dull gray. She glanced around like the silence unnerved her. It didn't bother me. I'd learned to live inside it. I didn't know how to reach you, she said. You found a way. I didn't want to just show up. And yet, here you are. She nodded. I don't even know what I expected. Closure. Maybe. I watched the wind play through the trees. A squirrel ran across the parking lot, unnoticed by everyone but me. I miss you, she said. I looked at her. You miss who I was. Who I was with you. She didn't argue. I've been alone in that house, she continued. It doesn't feel like home anymore. Because it was never the house, I said. It was us. She looked down. I know I don't deserve anything. Not after what I did. But I needed to tell you I'm sorry. Not because I want something. Because I couldn't carry it anymore. I let that settle. Let her feel the weight of her own words. Do you regret it? I asked. Yes. What part? All of it. Even the truth it showed you? She was quiet. That part hurts the most. I'm not angry, I said. Not anymore. But I'm not the man you left, either. I know. We sat in the pause. I've been reading your writing, she said. I blinked. How? Rachel showed me. She said it helped her too. I smiled faintly. Rachel's stronger than both of us. She nodded. Your words, they're beautiful. Honest. I didn't know you had that in you. That's because I spent too long using my words to protect your comfort. She looked away, jaw tight. You still love me? She asked. Yes, I said. But not in a way that asks for anything. It's the kind of love you give when you've let go. Her eyes filled. But she didn't cry. What happens now? I go back to my room. You go back to your car. And we keep walking forward. Separately. She stood. Can I hug you? I thought for a moment. Then stood too. We hugged. Brief. Quiet. No tension. Just memory. She pulled away first. Thank you. For letting me say it. I nodded. She got in her car. Didn't start it right away. Just sat there for a minute. I went inside. I didn't watch her drive away. I didn't need to. That evening, I sat at my desk for hours. Not writing. Not reading. Just staring at the blank screen. My hands hovered over the keyboard like they weren't sure what to say anymore. But the silence wasn't heavy. It was full. Full of everything I didn't have to carry anymore. I played back the conversation in my mind. Not to pick it apart, but to remind myself how far I'd come. A year ago, I would have begged her to stay. 6 months ago, I would have lashed out, demanded to know why. But now I just let her leave. It was strange. Beautiful even. The next morning, I woke up early. Sat by the window with coffee and watched the sun rise. Then I opened my journal and wrote a new entry. She came back. But I didn't. The words came easier after that. I spent the day walking, writing, cooking. Made a simple lunch. Took a book out to the dock. Let the wind flip the pages. I wasn't trying to escape anything anymore. I was just living. That evening, I heard from Rachel. Just a simple text. You okay? I wrote back. More than okay. She replied with a smiley face and nothing else. She didn't need to say more. She understood. I saw her a few days later. We met for coffee, no tension, no agenda. We didn't talk about Derek or Vanessa. We talked about writing. About her new place. About how silence isn't so bad once you stop fearing it. You seem different, she said. I feel different. I'm glad. We parted with a hug. A real one. No ghosts between us. I went back to the inn and rode into the night. I wrote about memory, about detachment, about how sometimes healing isn't loud. It's soft. It's choosing not to chase. When I finally closed the laptop, I felt lighter. Vanessa never messaged again. Not to ask for another talk. Not to apologize again. Not to see how I was doing. I think we both knew that chapter had closed. And for the first time, I didn't need a new one to start right away. I moved out of the inn in early spring. The trees had just started to green again, and the lake no longer shivered with ice. I found a small one-bedroom apartment in town. Nothing fancy, just clean walls, good light, and a second-hand desk that felt like it had stories in it. It was the first place I'd ever chosen without compromise. Not because it was close to her work. Not because it was a good school district. Just because it felt like me. The first thing I unpacked was the notebook. Then my laptop. Then the framed photo of the lake. I didn't bring much else from the old house. A couple of mugs. A lamp. The chair I used to write in. Everything else felt like it belonged to someone I didn't recognize anymore. I didn't tell many people I'd moved. Rachel knew. Tom, the innkeeper, knew. That was enough. My writing changed. It wasn't just about grief or betrayal anymore. It was about voice. About space. About choosing who I wanted to be, not who I'd once been in someone else's story. I started publishing short pieces online. Essays. Reflections. Fragments that lived somewhere between poetry and memory. People started reading. A few hundred at first. Then a few thousand. Messages came in from strangers. Thank you for saying what I couldn't. You made me feel less alone. This helped me leave. And one that simply read, your words gave me back my spine. That one stayed with me. I started a newsletter. Called it After the Fall. It wasn't about infidelity. Not really. It was about the quiet after. About rebuilding. About the hard work of coming back to yourself. By summer, I was writing full-time. Freelance contracts. Small speaking gigs. I got invited to read at a local event. Nothing big, just a microphone in a bookstore cafe. But it was the first time I stood in front of people and said the words out loud. I read a piece called The House We Built on Silence. When I finished, there was a stillness that wrapped the room. Then came the applause. Not loud, but steady, real. After the reading, a woman came up to me. Said she'd left her husband 3 months earlier. That his betrayal looked different, but it hurt the same. She said my words gave her permission to feel what she buried. I shook her hand. Didn't say much. Just, thank you. But I meant it more than I'd meant most things in my life. I walked home that night under a sky so wide it felt like it could swallow every version of who I used to be. When I got back, I opened a new document. Titled it, Reclaiming My Name. And then I wrote. For years, I existed in someone else's frame. Shrinking to fit. Quieting to comfort. But now, I choose volume. I choose light. I choose my own damn narrative. It wasn't rage. It wasn't triumph. It was truth. Rachel and I stayed in touch. She was doing well, working part-time at a nonprofit, hiking more, laughing again. We met every now and then. No expectations. Just understanding. One afternoon, she handed me a small envelope. Inside was a keychain with 2 words engraved. Still standing. I carried it everywhere. That fall, a publisher reached out. Said they'd been following the newsletter. Asked if I considered turning it into a book. I laughed at first. Then I said yes. We called it The Ring That Wasn't Mine. And no, it wasn't about Vanessa. Not really. It was about me. Choosing myself. Speaking without permission. Living without apology. It was about what you find when you stop asking to be saved. And start saving yourself. The envelope was plain. No logo. No return address. Just my name, typed in small font, centered. It looked like every other envelope in my mailbox. But I knew what it was before I opened it. I brought it inside and placed it on the table. Didn't open it right away. Just stared at it for a few minutes, like it might change if I waited long enough. It didn't. When I finally did open it, I read every word like I hadn't been expecting them for months. Final judgment of dissolution of marriage. It was official. I was no longer her husband. She was no longer my wife. There were no fireworks. No thunderclap of release. Just a quiet shift in gravity. Like something that had been heavy for so long finally set itself down. I signed the last page and slid it back into the return envelope. The pen I used was the same one I'd signed our marriage certificate with. I didn't plan that, but it felt fitting. A closed circle. That night, I went for a drive. No destination. Just open road and a full tank. The fall leaves had started to burn orange and gold, and the sky was clean. I played music, songs I hadn't heard since before everything. They didn't hurt the way they used to. They just were. When I got back home, my phone buzzed. A message from Vanessa. I saw the papers. I hope you're okay. I stared at it, then deleted it. Not because I was angry. Not because I wanted to erase her. But because I didn't need to keep hearing echoes of something I'd already left behind. I poured a glass of whiskey and sat on the balcony. The air was crisp, but not cold. I sipped slowly, watching the world move. My world. One I'd built on the ashes of what I thought I needed. In the morning, I booked a trip. One way. No itinerary. Just a backpack, a notebook, and a camera I hadn't touched in years. The first stop was a coastal town I'd always wanted to see. I rented a tiny cottage with windows that faced the sea. I spent the first 3 days walking, taking photos, writing. I wrote about the finality of paper, how something as thin as a page can carry the weight of a decade, how silence can be louder than grief. I met strangers who didn't know my story, didn't know my name. I told them I was a writer. That was all. It felt real. One evening, I took the signed copy of the divorce judgment and walked to the edge of the cliffs. I didn't burn it, didn't throw it to the wind. I folded it carefully, placed it under a stone, and walked away. Not because I needed to bury it, but because I didn't need to carry it anymore. That night, I sat on the beach and wrote the closing line of my next piece. Freedom doesn't always arrive with trumpets. Sometimes, it comes in a manila envelope, quiet and final, asking nothing but your signature. And I was ready to give it. It was raining the day I stepped onto the stage. Not the heavy kind. Just a steady, quiet drizzle that blurred the city skyline behind the tall windows of the event hall. The chairs were filling up slowly, but the room buzzed with a kind of energy I hadn't felt in years. Not tension, not fear. Something closer to recognition. This was the book launch. Mine. The ring that wasn't mine sat on a table near the entrance, stacked in neat rows. My name on the cover. A photo of the lake on the dust jacket. I watched strangers flip through it, heard their whispers. Some pointed to a page and nodded. Some didn't speak at all, just held it like something that belonged to them now too. I stood behind the curtain, heart calm. My story wasn't a secret anymore. It had breath, spine, shape. It had left the confines of memory and stepped into the world. The host introduced me. Applause rose, tentative at first, then warm. I walked to the podium, looked out at the crowd, and saw them. Rachel, sitting in the third row, her arms crossed gently over her lap. Tom, the innkeeper, near the back, wearing the same windbreaker he always wore. Even Wallace, from the community center, had shown up with a small grin and a proud nod. They knew the story, but they came to hear it anyway. I didn't read the opening chapter. I read a letter, not one in the book, one I'd written that morning. To the version of me who stayed too long, I don't blame you. You believed in something that once had roots. You loved fully, even when it wasn't returned. You bent until it broke, but not you. Never you. To the one who walked away, thank you. You weren't running. You were choosing. And that choice saved us. I paused. No one moved. I read on. To anyone who has ever been lied to, forgotten, betrayed, or used, this isn't a story about them. It's about you. And how you get to decide what happens next. Not in revenge, but in reclamation. You don't owe anyone your silence. You don't need their permission to begin again. You already have it. This is your story now. I stepped back from the mic. Silence. A breath. Then the applause. Not polite. Not dutiful. Real. People lined up after. Asked questions. Told me their stories. Gave me letters. One woman handed me a photo of her standing alone in a new apartment. Said the book helped her leave a decade of silence. I signed books with a shaking hand. Not because I was nervous, but because I finally felt seen. After the event, Rachel came up and hugged me. You did it, she said. No, I smiled. We did. She smiled. Still standing. Always. That night, I went home. Not to the cottage. Not to the inn. To my apartment. My space. I set the signed copy of my own book on the shelf next to the journals I'd filled that first winter. I sat at my desk, opened a blank page, and wrote. I was never asking to be chosen. I was just learning to choose myself. Then I closed the laptop, went to bed, and slept without dreaming. For the first time in a very long time. The end.